Hello friends, I am back with yet another video on Spot the Error. Remember my friends, into my previous video, I had talked about while you spot an error or into a sentence, you are supposed to approach in a way that the sentence has to be divided in two aspects. The first aspect is the subject of the sentence and the second one is the predicate, where everything goes around, as well as we worked it out into those previous sentences based on pronounish error, or we looked at the subject through the aspect of subject verb agreement and the conjunctions which play a pivotal role into making the nature or creating the nature of the subject. In today's topic or in today's video, I want you to understand one thing. It's the same concept. The concept is approach a sentence and first identify the subject of the sentence. So when we talk of this, let's approach and understand what could be the basic error which needs to be spotted here. So coming to the very first sentence basically talks of an expression. But into that expression, we need to first identify what is the subject of the sentence. So let me read it out for you. The first sentence talks of we shall have reached the station before sunset. Into this very sentence, what I identify is we happens to be the subject of the sentence and the station happens to be the object of the sentence. Now into this, what I have to understand is I have to specifically talk of, is the subject appropriate into the given sentence? Thumbs up, it's appropriate. Why? Because it is not being influenced by any other conjunction or any other word into the given sentence or into grammar. So that satisfies that this is exactly the subject of the sentence, which is not influenced by anything. Rather, when we talk of the object of the sentence, we talk of, is there anything which is basically being influenced? So nothing is influenced at this point of time except for the action. So when we talk of the action into the given sentence, we have to understand, is the action done appropriately? While there are two verbs which are basically being talked of: have reached and sunset. So for me, this word sunset and this phrase have reached, or just take have, or just take reach at this point of time. So there are two verbs happening here. When I talk of this, I see that sunset happens to be just a word which just talks of an action naturally done. And when I talk of this word into the given sentence, have reach or reach, I see that the word which is a form of verb is associated with a helping verb. Into a helping verb, let me put it forth to you. There is a rule. When you talk of have, has, had, helping verb, correct. Auxiliary verb, a form of auxiliary verb as well. Or into the subject verb agreement, we took these kinds of verbs as relative verbs. So coming back to it, have, has, had. These kinds of helping verbs, when they are associated with verb, remember, when these helping verbs are set with verbs, remember, the verb form will be always into the V3 category. V3 category happens to be the perfect form of the verb category. Or into the tenses, we basically talk of verb forms. So when we talk of the verb forms, when we refer to the tense aspect, which is referring to the time, which is referring to an event happened in certain period of time. Time, present, past, future. So coming back to this, when we have a verb associated with a helping verb form of have, has and had, remember guys, you need to work out that verb, spot it, and you need to work out that verb into the V3 category. So logically, if I have this sentence, I understood that my subject doesn't have anything to be done with, my object, all good. I have two verbs working out here. Into those two verbs, what I need to understand is which verb needs to be worked out, which verb is basically erroneous, or maybe there is something which is skeptical about it. Right, so coming to it, with rules, what I said was have, has, had and the verb associated with this relative verb should be in the V3 category. Talking about the V3 category, every verb has been categorically divided into four parts or four forms. Four forms are much better in a way to be associated. So if I talk about reach, reach or reaches happens to be the V1 form. That's the base form. V2 form of this verb happens to be reached, ed form. V3 form happens to be again the ed form of the word, that is reached, and the V4 form happens to be the ing form. Now we understood this, that whenever we get have, has, had into a given sentence, we need to just spot whether the verb used with this or associated with have, has, had, is it in the V3 form. So this is enough for us to spot an error. So here the exact expression grammatically is we shall have reached the station before sunset. In grammar, when we talk of this kind of sentence framing, this is appropriate. We can also talk of spoken language. We should have reached the station before sunset, no problems. But understand, my friends, when we talk of grammar, we need to be certain about certain words used and the formation and the grouping and the setting of the words with each other. That makes it more appropriate. So for this, today's lesson, number one thing what we have learned is whenever we have some aspect of verb associated with have, has, had, the verb form should be checked first into the given sentence so that we understand that that needed to be spotted. Okay, coming to the second, Tom shall have flee before the sun rises. I don't find any difficulty into it unless I knew that if have, has, had is associated with the verb form should be in the V3 category. Now, V3 category, I need to be aware of all the verbs and their forms. Right. So, if I have flee here, this verb needs to be checked and this verb form has to be in the V3 form. So logically, if I knew this, the form as V1, V2, V3 and V4 could be in such a manner: FLEE or FLEES. The second form FLED, the third form FLED, and the fourth form FLEEING. This is exactly similar to V1 plus ing form. That is how we need to work it out. Okay, so now when I said when you have verbs associated with relative verbs like have, has, had, remember the verb form has to be in the V3 category. So logically I'll put this instead of this. So that's how grammatically the sentence sits and satisfies. So the sentence becomes Tom shall have fled before the sun rises. That's enough. Coming to the third one, again what I see is I have got my degree in 1990. We often say I have got, I had been. So now logically been, being is a form of be or to be. But then when I talk about this word, I see and I spot that have is associated with a verb got. Now if I say got had to have forms, what was that form or what were those forms? So I say like it goes as go, or that's go, went, gone, going, but then we are working out on got, got. So when we talk about got, we have to work it out referring to get. So get, gets, that's the V1 form. Alright, got happens to be the V2 form. Gotten happens to be the V3 form, and get plus ing happens to be the V4 form, getting. Right. So as I said, have, has, had has to be associated with the V3 form of the verb. So for this, get, got, gotten happens to be the V3 form. Gotten here happens to be the correct verb grammatically, right? So gotten happens to be the correct and precise word which will make this sentence grammatically correct. How did we spot? Remember, we need to just read out and see whether the relative verbs have, has, had, are they associated with a given verb. If the given verb happens to be in association with have, has, had, that is where we need to strictly understand, is the verb associated with have, has, had, is it in the V3 form. That is where we need to categorically understand every verb is basically formed in 1, 2, 3, 4 formations. Alright, I hope you got an idea about this now. So the sentence becomes, I have gotten my degree in 1990. That's just how grammar works. Alright, this is far beyond, or this is just a part of the English which people often speak and which people often use. So grammatically this is correct. Coming down to the next one. I could not have swim another foot. Remember, we just have understood the combination. So with this combination of have, I have the verb swim, and if I were aware of it, I would have gone through this aspect and would have understood that there are forms of the word swim, and then the V1, V2, V3, V4 form happens to be swim, swims, swam, swum, swimming. These are the forms. If I am aware of it, I'm sure I'm going to do well into the spot the error. So what I have spotted into this sentence is the combination of this verb with auxiliary, helping, or relative verb like have, has, had. Remember, I have so far given you examples referring to have. This basically talks of present perfect tense. Remember, have, has, had expresses a sentence in perfect form. So have, has basically expresses a sentence in present perfect form. Had expresses a sentence in past form. Right. Okay. So coming back to it, what I constitute here is V1, V2, V3 and V4 forms of this word are these. And as a rule, have has to be associated with the V3 form. So that's where swim has to be replaced with the word swum. So grammatically the sentence becomes, I could not have swum another foot. I'm sure so far you've got an idea about, if we had to work out through tenses, what needs to be spotted. A spotting is always with the eyes and with logics. Okay, so coming down to the fifth one. I have saw Jack, that strange man, many times. Oh, I'm sorry, there is just a little Google. I saw Jack with that stranger many times. So well, that was not an error. It is maybe like you need to omit it. Excuse me for that error. There was this word which I just omitted by mistake. Excuse me for that. Appreciate your largestness. Alright, so when I talk about fifth one, I have saw Jack with that stranger many times. Again, what we spot here is the word have with a verb. The verb happens to be saw. That means I am referring to the base verb see. So see, saw, seen, seeing. these are the forms, verb forms of see. So logically, I have seen Jack with that stranger many times. That happens to be a simple spot the error because now we know the rules. Next, I'm sure you're getting a knack of it, you're getting into the heat of it to understand what exactly I'm trying to portray and what I'm trying to share with you guys. So remember, except for the tens and the tables, what I really want you to understand is, of course, all of us are comfortable with the grammar lessons when we come across it. But what about the spot the error? So into the spot the error, that is where I want you to get your hands on and become easy at it so that you can relax and just identify your sentences through your eyes and through sheer logics. Okay, coming to the sixth one. I have just drove 600 miles. Now the point is, this phrase here is just understood. Now the point is, have just and then the verb drove. Logically, again, what I see and spot here is have in association with the verb. Now, what clicks into my mind is there has to be something referring to drive, right? So drive, drove, driven, driving happens to be the we 1, 2, 3 and 4 forms of the word drive. Correct. So when I have this word, I will understand that my verb has to be in the V3 format. So the exact sentence would then be I have just driven 600 miles. Grammatically perfect. Okay, let's come on to the last one. The sun is rising in the east every day. Now, out of what we have understood here, this is just a little different. But the difference here is, what I want you to understand is, whenever you come across spot the error and sentences which expresses something which happens daily, which is just normal and which is as natural as how much you exist, how much you breathe, in a way that's just natural, something which is natural, something which happens on a daily basis without a schedule, referring to there is nothing as scheduled or man-made timetable onto that, it's just natural. So when we have an expression which happens daily and naturally, that is where we refer to that expression into simple present tense. So logically, this expression here, sun rises, perfect, happens to satisfy. So the sun is rising in the east, it rises in the east by default. Okay, so the sun rises happens to be the exact expression in verb which should work it out. So by the ways, the last thing which I want you to understand into this particular video is this expression. Remember the second rule. The second and the last rule for this video is, whenever you catch an expression which happens to be continuous, which happens to be normal and natural, understand that expression has to be put into the verb which is V1 form. That means the present form. So logically it should be R-I-S-E-S, rises in the east. No need to work out into your sentence, but whenever we are putting it into grammar, this is the spot with error logic. So it rises in the east by the ways, right? So I hope with this you have come across some aspect of tenses. Remember the rules, go back to the video. I'm sure you will garner some help out of it. Thank you everyone. Have a good day.